And I think we're live. Okay, Brian, I already shared the link with you, right? Brian, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, I can hear you, and I shared it on Telegram, Discord, and Twitter.
Right. Good. Okay. Hey guys, yeah, we're live. It's just gonna be a couple more minutes before we get the ball rolling. So I'm gonna play some nice royalty-free music in the meantime for you, and we'll be right back. Oh, did you guys hear me? Or was I muted just now?
Only
You're muted.
now. You were muted, but now it's okay.
Now, okay. Yeah, sorry. No, I was just saying that it seems like we're all there. And that Gary will be taking care of the chat. So let me just start recording on my end as well. Start recording OBS. Yep. And we're good to go. All right. Let's set everything up. One sec. Yep, we're good to go. Okay. Hello, everyone. Everyone joining us and everyone already here. Welcome to another edition of This Week in Crypto. If this is your first time here, this is a weekly panel call where the Santiment team and community members gather around and we talk about the recent crypto market events. So we do this from a sort of a different perspective than most. We try to not spend too much time on technical analysis, but rather really dive into fundamental data and talk about interesting market insights that we've discovered using our own metrics and indicators that we've developed over the last 3 years. So if you haven't used Santiment before, I strongly suggest before or after this call, checking out santiment.net. We have developed, as I already mentioned, dozens of tools, metrics, strategies, even alphas, including, and focused on-chain data, social media activity, and development activity within the crypto sector. We've done all of this to kind of help you better understand the crypto market and the behavior of some of its participants. So I definitely suggest checking out santiment.net during the call if you like what you hear, and also joining our Discord, because if you don't want to kind of wait until next week for you to talk about this stuff with somebody, we have our own trading channels where we pretty much discuss these types of market events through our indicators on a daily basis. So the link to the description to the Discord is also going to be in the description of this video. So be sure to check that out. All right, and also just in order for us to game the YouTube algorithm and have more people join our discussions in the future, be sure to like this video and subscribe to it. Even leave a nice comment if you like what you hear today, just so we can kind of grow our presence on YouTube as well. All right, with that out of the way, I think there's definitely a few different topics that we want to cover today. The topic of the video is whether Bitcoin is kind of ready or poised for a market dominance surge once again. So this is the starting line or starting point of our discussion today. But from that point on, we are going to kind of diverge into a bunch of different topics. So at any point, if you have specific coins or questions for us that you would like us to cover during this call, it's the best possible time of the week to do so. So anything that you are interested in, if you're like, hey, Dino, I'm interested in a specific coin, I'm not really sure what it's like from a fundamental perspective over the last couple of weeks, whether it's a good entry point, whether maybe it looks topish or, bearish at the moment, let us know in the chat, and we'll get to that after sort of the first part of the call where we talk about something that we've noticed in our own data and templates over the last week. So with that out of the way, I'm going to give it up to Max. And Max, if you want to share your screen and start us off on today's call, you're free to go.
Yeah, thank you, Dino. Actually, today more is an exception. I will do technical analysis.
A little bit doesn't hurt.
But the story behind will be more fundamental. Good. So when we are talking about Bitcoin dominance and Altseason, they are two connected things. They don't live separately one from each other. If there is high Bitcoin dominance, there is no Altseason. And other way around, if there is Altseason, there is fallen Bitcoin dominance. The chart in front on the screen is exactly this as Bitcoin dominance. Yeah, and we do share, or we did share it the last few weeks several times, and this was, I think, last time this line, not horizontal, the other one, it was kind of support resistance, and once it's broken, you see it went down, and this is where the crowd became aware of Altseason, because Bitcoin dominance fall down, or Bitcoin dominance fall down because of Altseason. And we need to look things into perspective. Now, when we go a little bit one day, this is the real longer term chart. And if we see it in this way, well, there will be kind of a little bit different story. Yeah, it has moved, but it hasn't moved much yet. And it means two things. One thing, once the real altcoin season will come, the move will be even stronger. Yeah, and the support line is actually somewhere here around 54. At the moment, we're at 63. But the more important for the moment is where we are now, right at where we're now, maybe a little bit lower. You see this line is 64, 62, 63 Bitcoin dominance. That's a long-term support line, which is being tested right now. We've been here in May of 2019, it went resistance, went down, and then break it through. We tried to break through this in September 2018, where Bitcoin went to it, and then went sideways for months, for half a year, actually for a year. So the number around 62% of Bitcoin dominance is important, been tested many times before. And this is where are we now. And it means that we can fall down, or we can be around this level. Most likely it will provide some support. There is a good chance Bitcoin will regain strength or will claim back a lost territory. But if this line is broken, this is where things will get interesting. We will see a lot of funny stuff where ICO 2017 will come into memory. It's coming slowly now with more and more scammy shilling projects, especially in the DeFi space. But we are not there. It's not BitConnect time yet. It will come likely if we break below 62. So now it's a time for consolidation. And if we went all the way through, okay, there will be a lot of firework, there will be a lot of fun. But likely we will somehow, maybe we'll go down and we'll go up again. Bitcoin has a good chance now to regain some strength. So, and if you use it's a free chart indicator on TradingView, just type in btc.d and you have it in front of your eyes. And once you go to daily time frame, you will see it by yourself. So we will put some lines. Well, you don't need to pay attention to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's how I see things. But these lines on 63 and 54, you will notice them by yourself pretty fast. Dino, I think that's the story from my side.
Right.
Just pay attention to this chat. Yeah, we don't typically do technical analysis. I mean, not in public. We do it on our own trading. But this is important. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's also notable that we just recently actually saw a dip in Bitcoin's market dominance. A lot of people were talking about this drop even maybe a month ago, where Bitcoin's dominance was actually still rising. I remember there was like talk about, oh, it's the start of the DeFi season and altcoin season. And meanwhile, I think Bitcoin's dominance went from like 64.5 to 65 in a couple of days. But now we are indeed actually seeing a bit of a retraction, but that support line, the long-term support line, still remains unbroken. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. Kelvin, you're writing something in the chat here. I didn't have time to look at it. Anything you want to add to this before we kind of move on? I see you wrote a bunch of stuff. Maybe better for you to chime in instead of me kind of parroting it for you.
Hey there, guys. Yeah, so one other thing that I want to point out is that if you look at the social board, I'm not prepared for that. That's why I wrote it in there. So you have to wait for me, or someone could quickly go do that while talking.
Is it the first chart that you shared here?
Yeah, just click on the links. Everything is there. Just click and open it up.
1 sec. Let me present for everyone on the call. 1 sec. So
let me see. I can do that fast enough as well, just in case. Sorry, guys. Yeah. So just a quick overview is that if you notice the social volume, right? There's some interesting patterns. You know how when
wait, are you presenting? Sorry, Kelvin.
I'm trying to remove some, trying to set it up. So I'll try my best.
Because it's still loading on my end.
No worries. Just let me close some stuff and make it less noise. And I think yes, okay. I think I have it. Just
okay. I'll stop presenting then, and you can take over because it's quite laggy on my end.
All good. I think I have it. I just got to find the correct window. All right. Okay. Yeah, I was just checking the social volume, and it was interesting because you know how we always talk about if the entire crowd is talking about like something, then you best do the opposite, man. So if you look at this, we are seeing here there's a huge spike of like Altseason. I'm just search for Altseason over here. Everyone's pretty excited for Altseason right now. And the last time around, we saw like huge spikes were around here, and of course the biggest spike sometime in 2019. Yeah. So because we don't really have the altcoin market cap over here, so I'm just using I think this is the price of Chainlink. If even know this, no. It's
Bitcoin, but you can change it in the URL. Oh yeah, you already changed it. Yeah, so should
be
it's
the Chainlink one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the price of Chainlink, and you can see things are going really mad, right? And if you note the dates, just and you guys to note the date down. I think it's somewhere around here, around 8 to 9 July. This is where the huge spike is.
Mm-hmm.
And also take note of the last time round. It's around 17 to I think 19 September. Everyone's screaming Altseason, and then now let's head over to. Great. I love the spinning circles. Okay, good. And then we head over to the total altcoin market cap, right? And remember just now, this is on the daily chart. And you know how I talk about like 8 July?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so 8 July, right? This is when the huge spike is, then 9 July. And you can see it topped out here already. It topped out already. Right now, altcoin market cap has topped out at the same spike. And then the social volume, if you look at it, here it has fallen by quite a bit already. So yeah, people are getting less excited. And if you look at the last time round that I talked about, it was 17 September, right? And altcoin market cap really made a good rise somewhere around here. And then it topped out on the 20th Sep, bam, and then it went down. So if it will be interesting to note this two periods right now where I see interesting people screaming Altseasons. So with this combining it with the Bitcoin dominance, I do expect a bounce. And also, I've been seeing way too many people getting excited about Altseason, calling for the next coins to be like 100x on this. These are the things that you should look at, blah, blah, blah. But I have to say, it's not that I'm not saying Altseason won't continue, but it needs to chill a little bit before it continues. Yeah, hope that gives some insight on that.
So basically, what you're saying is you think the crowd is kind of cooling off a bit as far as the alt-season hype is concerned, right? At least in terms of the amount to mention. So basically, guys, for everybody that's unfamiliar with what Kelvin is currently showing, he's showing the amount of mentions of the word alt-season on over 1,000 different crypto social media channels. This is a feature that we have on app.santiment.net, completely free. I think one of probably the most powerful features that you can find out there outside of just the on-chain analytics. Is basically what you're seeing is you're seeing the crowd interest for any specific topic. Currently, we're just looking at a single word, which is alt-season, and we're seeing the amount of mentions of that word kind of grow and ebb and flow over time. And it seems to have peaked at about, what was that, Kelvin? At about, yeah, so July 8th, right around the Chainlink's first sort of top. Was that the time it broke all-time high? I think it was, actually.
Yeah, it was around that time, and that followed on through.
Yeah, it
So the
then
thing is,
started
as
going
usual,
like crazy.
yeah, as we mentioned before, like, it's okay to see spikes like that, but it needs to keep following up for the trend to continue, because that means new people are coming in and agreeing that, yeah, it is out season. Then these new buyers, these new folks that come in tends to be the buyers into that out season narrative. But then it appears that less people are, or at least out seasons are being mentioned, but not as much as before, really. So yeah, so just
So I think I wouldn't actually be surprised that much of this came from Link enthusiasts and fans, that the moment that we kind of broke all-time high for Chainlink, because Chainlink is kind of I think more and more it's been used as a proxy for altcoins, right? What Chainlink is doing, it's very often kind of for some reason mirrored or plastered all over the altcoin ecosystem. So the moment that it broke all-time high, I saw on Twitter, people kind of started shilling other coins related to Chainlink or adjacent to Chainlink, which they were hoping are going to kind of start doing the same thing. Can we actually, while you're on the screen, Kelvin, can we see the amount of mentions of Link or Chainlink over the last, what is that, like a year or so? I'm wondering if it's still kind of super high like it was a few days ago when I wrote about it, or if it's actually started coming down a bit.
So I key in this. Oh, there we go. Well,
No, it's actually still very high. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of mentions.
Quite a lot. If you zoom out a bit more, let's maybe look at the last. Actually, you know what you can do? You can go to Chainlink's. I think it's probably better. Go to Chainlink's profile page and just click on its own social volume, because that's going to give us a better picture of the correlation between its social volume and price. Yeah, look at that graph, man. So the social volume is still crazy high, right? Basically, I don't know if it's at an all-time high. Can you go to all-time, Kelvin?
Let's take a quick look.
It's getting there. It's getting there. The previous time that we've seen this amount of social volume was, guess what, near the July 19th top. Let's see that a bit more. Yep, there you go. I mean, this is something that we see quite often, is that these spikes in social volume tend to correlate very clearly with, incoming local price stops, and sometimes, the start of a consolidation period, sometimes just the start of a very strong correction. So anybody that's kind of interested in Chainlink at the moment, given its current price action and the social volume that comes with it, it's looking a bit scary. I'm not saying that it can go higher. I think there's quite a lot of hype around the project at the moment, but it seems like the bullishness, the overwhelming bullish sentiment towards Chainlink at the moment might be its demise in the short term, at least. So yeah, okay, good stuff.
Yeah. Hey. Yep. No worries. Dino, I'll pass it back to you.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Kelvin. All right. With that out of the way, we already kind of switched between a few coins, but we're gonna go back to Bitcoin because this is one of the things, or one of the main things that we wanted to talk about today is what is the Bitcoin short-term outlook or mid-term outlook, because a lot of people are still kind of confused where we're going to come out or which direction we're going to come out after Bitcoin's consolidation is done. Are we going to bounce back above 10K, or is it going to go below like 7 or even 6K, which is something that I've seen on Twitter being kind of shilled over the last couple of days. So with that in mind, Brian, if you want to share your screen and kind of take us through some of your templates that you've created for Bitcoin and tell us what they're kind of saying about Bitcoin right now as far as its on-chain activity and how it correlates to the price, that would be great. And before Brian does that, guys, once again, for those of you just joining us, any sort of questions that you have for us, if you want us to take a look at a specific coin or something interesting that you've seen on the market in the past couple of days, if you're interested in whether a coin is priming for a correction, or whether there's still room for it to grow, at least from based on what the data is telling us at the moment, let us know in the comments and we'll get to it after Brian's exposition or presentation about Bitcoin. So Brian, the floor is yours, man.
Awesome. Onward with my exposition here. Thanks, Dino. So we are looking right now at the top 100 market caps and their last 30 days of returns. As you would expect, altcoins have been exceeding Bitcoin. You may not expect that it's been quite as significant as it has been, though. If we look at this purple line here, this is showing us the average of the top 100 returns over this time period. We see that the returns have been 29.3, so we'll call it almost 30% gained in the top 100. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is about negative 4.3, and Ethereum, negative 4.3, and Ethereum's negative 0.3. So they've essentially been even, while the rest of the market, with a few exceptions, have almost all been in the positive. This is what I would define as a clear alt season. Obviously, most of us would call it that by now. But I think, based on what I'm seeing, this could go on perhaps a little bit longer. And in a second, I'll show you what would eventually stop it. And it's not just going to be a decision by the market to suddenly put all their money in Bitcoin. It's likely going to come from Bitcoin actually doing a bit of retracement, in my opinion. And I will show you a few reasons why I think this may be happening. So starting with volume here, what this is showing is the previous month of volume, trading volume that is, versus the previous year before this last month. So it's basically taking June 17th to July 17th for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a few other altcoins here, versus June 2019 to June 2020, and measuring them from an average daily percentage basis. So we see here a pretty striking development right now. Both Bitcoin and Ethereum have both identically sort of dropped about 39 to 40% over this past month compared to the previous year, while others have exploded. Now, obviously, these are extreme examples because these are 5 assets that have really been trending over the past month. But regardless, I'll show you what it's like even over month to month, and it's not much different. But you can see that, ETHLend has gone wild, Kyber network over 300%. These are very massive numbers in trading volume, guys. And, it tells me that so much of the focus has been on altcoins that we've kind of ignored the core proponents of what make the crypto markets go up and down. And for those who have been around crypto for long enough, they know fully well that given enough time, most assets are going to circulate around Bitcoin in particular here, with Ethereum kind of playing second fiddle and following in Bitcoin's footsteps. And looking at month on month, it's a even more drastic story. Bitcoin, its volume in July, from mid-June to mid-July compared to mid-May to mid-June, is down negative 42%. So this is basically comparing right post-halvening to mid-June and then mid-June to mid-July, and showing just what effect Bitcoin's interest level has had on its trading volume since the halvening stopped. And as more time has passed since, the interest level has dropped more and more significantly. So really interesting there. We also have on-chain transaction volume, which shows that for Ethereum, things are at least looking a little better, and things have actually improved over the last year, as most assets should, to justify their price growth. But Bitcoin, despite really being around the same area, maybe just a little lower than it was last year at this time, as some of you remember, it was coming off around a high of 13.5K at that time, but significantly dropped off in July. This July, we're in the low 9,000s, just a little bit under where it was last year, but the on-chain transaction volume is down a lot more. So that's concerning to me. You'll also notice standouts like 0x here, as opposed to trading volume, where ETHLend was kind of getting in on-chain transaction volume. It's more on the 0x side. And you can see on month on month, it's a little more optimistic. We've got an even change for Bitcoin, whereas 0x has even a little bit less than it did on the month on year scale. But regardless, the story is really about these five, right? These are representative of what's happening in altcoin markets right now. And there's clearly an added interest in transaction volume and trading volume, all going into alts right now. And I think that it could end up stopping out a lot of people if Bitcoin collapses or even just has a mild retrace. And I'll show you a few points on why I think this could be, beginning with Bitcoin here. For those of you who followed our calls in previous weeks and months, you may know this as our NVT analysis model to show bearish versus bullish divergences. And right now, we are seeing a bearish divergence here. And basically since June, after a good May due to the halvening and some interest in exclusively Bitcoin for at least part of the month, May had a pretty good semi-bullish signal form for Bitcoin, resembled here in yellow-green. But once June hit, the interests just gradually shifted over to altcoins, and we had our first bearish month since January. And with this bearishness, we've kind of been just in range for now, showing that the market is being held up and it does have enough support to stay over the 9K level. But this can only last so long when we aren't getting enough token circulation. And here in July, things are looking even more gloomy. And the red bar here is rising, and we want to see the bars on this particular model falling, going lower to indicate higher and higher bullish divergences, like we can see here for Link, for example. We can see that December, January, we had bearishness, but ever since February, nothing but bullish signals here for the past 6 months. This is why you can see, it got so much rocket fuel, because it's getting all of these unique tokens transacting on the network, and it's able to sort of move forward and upward because of the token circulation. Now, going back to actual token circulation on sand data, where we can see it isolated from everything else, we can see how it's supporting what the model is showing. It peaked, obviously, right on Black Thursday, and this was kind of an indication that there was a ton of volatility and uncertainty. People were trying to figure out whether to move their money into fiat or alternatively buy the dip. And ever since then, you can see just here, if you look at just the lower spikes without looking at these high ones, it's been a gradual descent here all the way down to mid-July, where we're at basically the same levels as we were at in late January on this 6-month time scale. And this is not what you want to see when you see an asset attempting to climb. It simply means that throughout the network, all of the tokens that are involved in Bitcoin, they're not being moved as efficiently or as often as they were, back when things really were able to rise in April and early May here. And then it peaked right when token circulation started to really make its descent after this initial spike, just a couple weeks before the halvening. That was when halvening hype, in my opinion, was at its highest as people were preparing for it. And when halvening actually happened around, I think it was May 12th or May 13th, you guys can correct if I'm off by a day there. But ever since then, that was the end of the price kind of volatility. And we've been in kind of this long ranging pattern for about 2.5 months now. So, it's not the most encouraging sign. I can show you our daily active address divergence as well. Keep in mind, I had a good conversation with Maxim about this yesterday. Keep in mind, the further into the present day we are, the more iffy we have to be about what this data is producing, because we are using 2 years worth of lagging data to get a context as to what the normalized daily active addresses are. So I'm currently in the process of actually changing this into using the previous 2 years of data and then measuring our 2019 and 20 data versus it. But long story short, we're still in this kind of ranging pattern. You notice how the red bars here are more significant than the green bars, telling me that there's a developing trend of just slightly more bearish signals than bullish since our ranging began in May. So this is another case that Bitcoin is at a concerning level right now. And it doesn't look anything like this, where we're about to see a sudden collapse, but it does mean that a dip to 8K seems more likely in my mind than a rise to 10K again. And if it does rise to 10K, it better have this kind of support with these green signals. Otherwise, it's not going to last long like it did. It only did for a day or two the previous 2 attempts at over 10K. So yeah, definitely concerning there. If we look at like Ethereum, for example, much better. We've actually had 3 straight months of NVT bullish signals going on. And on the daily active address chart, same thing. We've got, we had neon green signals. You guys may have noticed we put on Twitter that we had this first neon green signal since late June. And last time the neon greens happened, we went from, I think, 228 to about 247 a week later. But obviously, this rests on Bitcoin's shoulders as to whether it can retain these levels longer and allow altcoin season to continue to prosper the way it has. But I'm seeing some warning signs right now, especially right here, where we're seeing, the highest bar indicating bearishness that we've seen basically on this entire model here. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, before you move to the next template, it's actually what you're just mentioned as far as the NVT is concerned. If you go to SAN data and you look at the percentage of active Bitcoin in the last 1 year, it pretty much paints the entire picture, or the same picture, which is that we're currently hitting an all-time low. So if you go just to the on-chain metrics V2, yeah, and then it should be in the transactions panel. There we go. So just a few panels down, a bit more, yeah. So select only the percentage of coins active in the last 1 year, and you can go to all time or last 10 years. And so the people can see that we are actually at the moment at the lowest point of the amount of Bitcoin being active in the last year. I think it's currently at around like 35%. Let's see. Yeah, somewhere around 35, right? Yeah, 35.8%. So that's the total amount of Bitcoin that have been, of all the Bitcoin that have been active in the last year. So this also kind of clearly shows I think the not just market indecision, but also the fact that not a lot of people are at the moment transacting Bitcoin. They're sitting on their backs. I think a lot. Some people make this to be some kind of an incredibly bullish indicator because it's I think a lot of people think that this means that that users or holders of Bitcoin are so convinced in its long-term value that they're starting to hodl it like gold. I think like even though there's probably part of it which kind of part of the people that just think of this and you think that Bitcoin's active percentage of active coins means that its store of value kind of narrative is growing. I think it's also just because of the current price action and people are just not really sure what to do. They're not really, the market indecision is quite high at the moment. People are not really confident that we're about to break above 10K, but at the same time, they're not really, sure that we're going to drop to an all-time low or anything like that. So it's a strange time for Bitcoin holders, and we can see that they're kind of not really sure what to do at the moment. They're just kind of sitting on their bags and waiting for the next, volatility to come and hit the market so that they know what to do.
Yeah, this is really fascinating, especially seeing that we just eclipsed an all-time low, really, in 1 year percentage active coins. That's quite a great finding here, and it definitely eerily reminds me of the long stagnation we had at that 6K range, which I believe was, what was it, 2018, late 2018, when we eventually collapsed down to 3,500. This doesn't necessarily imply we're going to have a similar collapse of any type, but the similarities to the level of uncertainty in the markets between then and now are definitely noticeable.
For sure.
So this is really interesting to find.
Before you, Brian, the next template that you wanted to show, is it related to Bitcoin or is it something else?
No, I was going to transition to the KNC.
Yeah, can we just before that, while we're still on Bitcoin, can we just take a quick look at its social sentiment metrics? So
I've got that here.
Because I'm curious, especially on Twitter, right? I'm curious because our sentiment algorithm was trained on social data from Twitter. So we have this algorithm that we've created, which tries to, other than just, collect the amount of mentions of a specific coin on crypto social media, it also tries to understand what the crowd is actually saying, whether these messages are positive in nature or bullish or bearish. So at the moment, what you're looking at right now is we call it weighted social sentiment. Essentially, you're looking at the average sentiment of the crowd towards Bitcoin on, in this case, Twitter, right? So this is the view for the last 2 years, and you can see that currently, I think ever since we actually started tracking data, we're currently at an all-time low as far as Bitcoin-related sentiment on Twitter is concerned, meaning, we are at an all-time bearish level of, crowd mood on Twitter as far as our data is concerned. So that's something definitely to think about. I don't necessarily think that this is a bad signal, and we talk about this quite often on these calls that very so often, not just for Bitcoin, but for other coins as well, the local tops and corrections usually don't come from a place of an extremely bearish sentiment, but rather the exact opposite. So if you, for example, look at July 2019 on this graph, you can see that Bitcoin's two tops in 2019, they happened during an extremely bullish sentiment, or on average, the crowd was very excited and believed that Bitcoin could break an all-time high, and this is what happened. So we see a similar sort of hype happening around its halvening before May 11th, and then after a disappointing showing, after Bitcoin's halvening actually happened, we see the crowd kind of starting to very much change its opinion and pivot into a bearish, an average bearish sentiment from there on out. And it stayed there throughout Bitcoin's consolidation, and it's now even started getting worse. So people seems more and more concerned as far as Bitcoin's short-term price action and even long-term price action. Is that bad? Not necessarily, because if you then go back and look at the times from which, or the sentiment levels from which Bitcoin broke up, you can see that most of them actually happened from a bearish position. So most of Bitcoin's kind of rallies in the past 2 years actually started from a predominantly bearish atmosphere, which gave room for the price of BTC to grow because the hype was not there yet. The crowd was kind of fairly worried. Let's call it realistic, maybe, or even a bit too skeptical about the price of BTC, which helped its price to kind of ascend for a while. So we are at that level once again where the crowd is very bearish on average. Therefore, it at least lends support, enough support for the price to grow upwards before we hit that FOMO and hype wall once again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As Dino's saying, the markets tend to do what the overall perception is least expecting. So if the crowd is expecting the price to go up and you start seeing people yelling that we're going to hit 20K again in the next month, it will not do that. If the crowd suddenly thinks we're all going to crash down to 5K again, it won't do that either. Overall, social behavior in what we've seen historically has shown that when crowds get extreme, the price does the opposite. Obviously, we see something like this where they actually got hyped and the price was able to run up, but we quickly saw that run up was sort of a falsely propped up price. It was encouraged by FOMO and it quickly dropped off, right? So there are exceptions like that, but if you see that something takes off after really positive sentiment, know that it's likely coming from a lot of new addresses and shillers and things that aren't really related to the true network health of an asset. Right. So yeah, interesting there for sure.
Oh wait, can you hear my dog in the background? Really? Yeah, he's sleeping. It's incredible that you can hear it from my mic. All right, let me mute myself. Sorry about that, guys.
Cool. So yeah, I will transition. I want to show, let me see if this will actually come up. I didn't prepare it for the call here. It's only showing this week. Generally, this is a cool template that people can check to see how emerging trends have fluctuated over time. Right now, it didn't load all the data, and I'll have to do that on my own, and maybe I'll share it later on Twitter. But yeah, from what I've seen, emerging trends over time gradually went from Bitcoin back here all to altcoins ever since post-halvening, right around the 15th, all the way until present. And we saw like a flash in the pan for Bitcoin in one of these weeks, but mostly all of the assets that are appearing on the emerging trends are in the top 50 altcoin range, and Bitcoin and Ethereum are mostly being ignored right now. So I'll show that on Twitter probably either today or sometime this weekend. One other thing that's interesting to look at right now in the markets is token age consumed. What this measures is the amount of tokens moving on a network multiplied by the amount of time that they have been sitting in their particular address. So what this is indicating, we saw here a very big spike from 0x about a month ago, and that had a very positive effect on the asset in the week following. That is not always going to be the case. Oftentimes we'll see the token age consumed will indicate volatility, meaning it will make a trend shift and have increased amounts of fluctuations, following a giant spike. And over the past 3 months, there's been no greater spike than what we just saw with Kyber network a couple days ago. We saw a minor one on the 13th and then a huge one on the 14th. And this 347 number is the percentage above the normal median deviation. So Kyber network's normal token age consumed on average would be here. This spike was 347% higher, and we can visualize that on Sandbase here, where we look at the token age consumed. You can see here in the very skinny bars here, right over there in the corner in pink, that was the size of the token age consumed, and you can just look at that compared to the average token age consumes that you normally see for it. And now you'll also see that that aligned perfectly with the exchange outflow and inflow that happened on that day. So there was a huge amount of tokens being moved off of exchanges at the time this token age consumed spike happened. Some of you may think that this means that the price will go down because outflow implies that there might be kind of an exit of tokens away from the markets. But looking historically, it can kind of go both ways. You can see that the exchange outflow sort of correlated with this, which was a semi-top. It correlated with this, which was shortly after the semi-top, but it kind of occurred right afterwards and then led to a rise afterwards. You can see here, it happened at the bottom, the local bottom back on right after the Black Thursday happened. And then right here again, this was kind of a local top. This one was a local bottom. And then this one was kind of a local top. So it goes both ways, but you can see that it does align with a price shift in most cases, especially when it also is concurrent with a token age consumed spike. So this is something I would keep an eye on. Obviously, Kyber network has made a massive run up, and we need to, keep that in mind when we see something like a huge move like this. It might mean that it's a long-term shift back to the negative. But I'm not going to proclaim that by any means, especially with everything going on with DeFi in Kyber network right now. There's a lot of encouraging fundamental signs. So if there is going to be a price shift to the downside, I don't know if it would last very long just because of the amount of optimism revolving around the project right now. Mm-hmm. Since it's 10 till the hour, I've got other things I can show, but I want to make sure you've got plenty of time to go over your stuff, Dino.
Sure. I actually think if it would be best if we can leave some time for Q&A here. So, guys, once again, for those of you just joining us, I already mentioned a few times in the past hour. This is, the part where you guys can ask us anything that you find, interesting or curious about the market at the moment, so we can comment on it. So, are there any coins at the moment that you're looking at that you're not really sure about what they're doing? Anything in particular that you would want us to cover from a fundamental perspective? Is there a specific coin that you think might be about to break, or is on the other side of the spectrum about to dump? We can kind of take a look at its data here live and see what it's saying. So if anything interesting there, Brian, among the comments that we can kind of cover at the moment.
I'm seeing a question about Travala and a question about VeChain.
Yes.
So that's a good place we can start here. Let's see. Get rid of all of these metrics. What's Travala's ticker? Oh, there we go. I've got it. AVA.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure if it was going to come up with the whole thing typed out. Okay. Travala, which is not an ERC20. So we do have some top holder metrics for it.
I think we don't at the moment.
We do not actually.
Yep. Yeah. So Travala is not an ERC20 coin, so we don't currently have much on-chain data for it, or at all really, because we don't track their blockchain. It's a similar thing with VET, but on the other hand, what we can see is we can kind of take a look at its social volume, and we can see just the general sort of price-related trends and volume-related trends as well. I know Travala has been making quite a few kind of market moving news and announcements in the past couple of days and weeks. I've seen Travala partner with, what was it, BAT. They also partnered with, I think, Elrond recently, right before kind of ERD went on this huge binge. So yeah, there's quite a few stuff, and I think I might be wrong. I haven't really paid too much attention to Travala. Didn't it get listed somewhere recently? Not sure, but let's see, Brian, kind of what we have in terms of Travala's data that we can kind of take a look at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like the main things we can kind of look at right now is just trading volume and social volume. And we can see had its biggest spike, it looks like, right at its local bottom back on July 2nd. And right when this spike happened, it could have been related to exactly what you're saying about its affiliations with BAT and what was the other one, Ethlend?
Yeah, Elrond, but yeah,
Elrond, excuse me.
There's a few out there. Yeah, it could be there.
But yeah, it looks like the social volume spiked here. It's a little hard to see, but it spiked there, and it also spiked here, right at the local top as well. And it looks like it's sort of following what social volume is dictating pretty closely. Just keep in mind, if you look in the top left box up here as I'm scrolling, the social volume bars are very low.
Yeah, we don't have too many mentions of Travala on our, yeah.
That means we should take it with a grain of salt, really, because just a few individuals can talk about it and cause a spike, meaning that the markets are pretty illiquid because they do still, they respond to these social spikes, and they do seem to have some relevance based on them. But this makes a lot more sense when the social volume is about 10 times as high and you've got a little more of a sample size. Trading volume, I think, is a little more indicative. And you can see that, you know, after these tops here, it looks like that's when the trading volume kind of spikes. So you probably, if you're strategizing on when to enter and exit Travala, the best times to do it is when trading volume is lower, like down here. And then when it gets high, that's kind of a one-off from social volume and shows when the crowd, if you want to call it that, since it's not much of a crowd, that's when they are starting to get in and trying to recognize that a pumping coin may be happening. And they're, for the most part, it looks like they're getting it wrong, and they're trying to get in right when tops come in. So you want to be doing sort of the opposite with these smaller coins to react when the crowd is not reacting.
We can also look at its Twitter follower change. I mean, it's a vanity metric, but it's indicative of whether the project is kind of gaining a bit more steam and just awareness in general. Yeah, you can see that spike. So that's what, a 24-hour change, I think.
Yeah, interesting that it happened right after the biggest spike too. About a day after, not even, yeah, about a day after.
And what about its development activity? Are we tracking their repositories? Let's see.
I tried. It didn't come up.
Okay. It
could be I tried to do regular development.
Yeah.
Tried it on Binance. No, nothing right now.
Could be that they're working in closed repos, so we don't currently track their data. Yeah, I mean, as far as on-chain data, like I already mentioned, we most of the data that we cover at the moment does tend to focus on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ethereum-based tokens. So anything ERC20 related, we have a bunch of data for. XRP, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, you know, the top caps as well. But as far as the smaller coins that are building on their own blockchains, that's something that we haven't really gone out of our way to integrate to the platform yet, because there hasn't just been enough customer demand. Yeah, I think VeChain is also one of a similar issue as far as on-chain data is concerned, but we do have quite a robust social volume for VeChain, I think, and I've seen it. I've seen it kind of correlate with its price action from time to time. So let's see what social volume for VeChain is doing. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Right at the top.
Yep.
That's when it peaked. Even here, this was the local top before an eventual secondary rise, and this spike here. Oh, what just loaded? Oh, interesting. Social dominance loaded as well. But yeah, social volume, this was the top right here, guys. This was in both cases, you can see that these social volume spikes were pretty much identical. And in both cases, the price retraced right afterwards. Now you'll see that when bottoms come in, you'll have kind of like a smaller social volume spike occur. And that's what kind of happened shortly after the actual bottom. But yeah, it looks like VeChain is a pretty reliable asset to track social volume on and see what the crowd is going to be doing accordingly. So right now, we would say that it's kind of in range, but if it starts to climb and you see any sort of growth on social volume, that's a pretty good sign that it's time to take some profit. And if you want to scalp and get cute, you can sort of take profit at that point and then get lower right when you see a smaller major social volume spike like this one here. Social dominance looks like it's mostly just following along, so that's not something we need to see. And then volume as well, it looks like volume is mostly just lagging behind what social volume is doing. So we see the spike here, trading volume sort of follows a day later, spike here, trading volume kind of peaked around the same time, but stayed up a little bit longer before falling back down.
Quite normal. I think the crowd interest comes first before the speculative interest. We see that quite often. And so the past 24 hours, there's been a small spike in VT social mentions. Obviously, I think probably correlated with this small bump that it's received in the past 24 hours or so. Nothing too crazy, I think, at the moment still. Like, it is relatively high, but I wouldn't call it, price changing or anything like that. So right now, Brian is showing the sentiment balance on Sandbase, basically the relative social sentiment towards VET on crypto social media at the moment. So we're seeing this kind of a big bump here, Brian, is as far as drop as far as its sentiment is concerned. So it seems like the crowd is moving more and more towards bear sentiment as far as kind of along with the price uptrend for it, right?
Yeah, and it looks like the three biggest dips in this, I guess we'll just call this part of this one, but this one, and possibly this one, all correlated with tops, at least local tops. This one obviously was the biggest, but even this minor one here kind of correlated with just a mini top before the negativity just went away right here, and that allowed the price to rise. But yeah, it looks like, let me see if I can expand it a little more because I'm curious on it, but it looks like the crowd has gotten it right the last 3 times.
Yeah, let's look at the zoomed out version of it.
Yeah, and with smaller tokens like that, that can often be the case because the crowd can actually tilt the asset's price in the way that they're expecting and wanting it to. And VeChain is, I don't even know, is it in the top 50? I think it's like between 50 and 100.
Yeah, it should be in the top 50, I think, as far as market cap's concerned.
Let me check really quick. I'm very curious.
I mean, VeChain's, to be fair, VeChain social mentions also tend to spike whenever there's a big announcement. I know recently there was something about VeChain partnering with China's, I think, agricultural sector. Yeah, it's in.
I don't know. Yeah, I take it back. I did not know it was in the top 20.
Yeah.
My bad, guys.
It's quite big. So sometimes the social mentions tend to kind of pick up on non-price related events, but actual news. But so far, yeah, I mean, if you look at the graph, it seems like at least on the social side of things, the VeChain crowd knows what they're doing and what they're talking about.
Yeah,
So
they're nailing the tops.
Yeah, every big drop in the sentiment comes with a local top.
We'll call this one exception here, really. That's about it.
I mean, even then, I think if you zoom in, you'll see that it kind of pretty much coincided
coincided
with at least the short-term consolidation before the next leg of the rally. So at the moment, yeah, we're seeing a relatively small, but still quite a significant drop in sentiment. So it seems to be kind of on the level that it was around June 20th, Brian?
Yeah, June 20th or so, right here.
Yeah, actually, yeah, right there, right at that mini top that we saw.
June 11th, yeah.
Yeah, but the current sentiment level is similar to the one on June 20th, I think.
Oh, I see what you're saying. This one up here.
A bit to the left, a bit to the right.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so it seems like it's quite similar to that one before we saw a mini drop. Yeah, that's as far as social data is concerned. It would appear not great for VETs, at least today, right? I'm not gonna say, and I don't really think that this is like a nail in a coffin for VET's price action going forward. But at least as far as daily action is concerned, this top or an uptrend seems to have awoken the bears for VET a little bit. So wouldn't be surprised to see a small correction or a consolidation before anything else happens. Now, I've seen a few more comments. We don't have too much time, but I've seen a comment about Ocean, and I've seen one about Enjin. I always like looking at Enjin, so we can maybe take a quick look at that as well, and then take a look at Ocean at the end.
Do we have Ocean?
Gary, do we have Ocean? What's the ticker for the Ocean coin?
We should. It's like Ocean. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just maybe our search is not working.
Let's give it a quick refresh, see if it pops up. Otherwise, we'll just go to
Or
Enjin.
selected from where you have VeChain selected there.
There we go.
There it goes.
Yeah, Ocean was in the top 10 projects by development activity, I think,
Oh, yeah,
relatively
it was.
recently. Yeah, I talked to their team maybe a month ago or so. They were building some, they were kind of kicking ass as far as, yeah, you can see that major spike in development activity. What was that, in May? That's when I
Yep.
talked to the team. If you want, you can go back to our insights and you can read our May development report where we kind of highlight the top 10 ERC20 projects as far as development activity is concerned and what their teams have been working on. So that was kind of a precursor of this rally of Oceans, right? The team kind of pushing out new code, polishing the product, kind of staying true to its roadmap, and then in the next couple of, or in the past couple of days, we really saw a rise. So it seems to have broken its all-time high in the past, what is that, like 48 hours? Okay, can we look at, Brian, first of all, let's look at daily active addresses and see what the general network activity is like, whether it's still relatively high, which should be good for the price of Ocean going forward, just because there's enough fundamental support. Okay, well, it's in a decline at the moment. That's not ideal. Can we zoom in a bit just to see how big of a decline that is? Okay, maybe last 3 months. Right. Yeah. Okay. So we saw this is something that we see quite often. Now, maybe it's still too early to say, but you can obviously see that the amount of daily active addresses interacting with Ocean starts to increase dramatically with its price action. This is fine, and as long as the daily active addresses kind of follow the price of Ocean, we should be good to go because there's enough fundamental support. There's actually enough activity on the network to validate and justify the rise in price. However, in the past, what is this, like 72 hours or so, the amount of addresses actively interacting with, and by interacting with, I mean sending or receiving Ocean, has started to drop dramatically. It seems to be now almost at the pre-pump level. And this is something that we call a price DAA divergence. DAA just stands for daily active addresses, where you see the price trying to push upwards once again, but there's not enough fundamental support or not enough activity on the network to really prop up the price once again. So I would take this as a relatively concerning sign at the moment that we're seeing the amount of actual on-chain activity start to basically normalize to its standard levels that it was before breaking its all-time high. I would find that relatively concerning if we really want to see Ocean continue its trend upward. Let's see what's going on with its exchange-based data. Is there a lot of sell pressure? Maybe if we look at the exchange inflow in the past 3 months, and see what was the kind of the amount of coins being moved to centralized exchanges. Yeah, if you go to on-chain, there we go. All right, yeah. So there's been a huge spike in exchange inflow right before the drop. As easy as you can. I mean, it's as simple as you can really go with analyzing a coin. You can see a massive rise in sell pressure before a very sharp drop. Something that we see time and time again along all or around local tops or during the price bumps. When you see this huge spike in the amount of coins being moved to centralized exchanges in this case, there's probably only one reason why this is happening. This is, sometimes long-term holders or sometimes even just new money starting to take advantage of the rally and starting to take advantage of the price action and looking to take some profit. So obviously a relatively concerning sign as well is that we're seeing this rise in the exchange related activity of Ocean. We saw this massive spike, and the Ocean bulls were just unable to absorb so much coins being wanted to be sold at the same time. So we had a short-term correction, and then we bounced back a little bit. And in the past 24 hours, I see a slight spike once again in the exchange inflow. Nothing too crazy, but I would keep an eye on this going into the next couple of days. If we see another sort of a spike as the price tries to push upward, it would probably indicate that there's another sort of wave of sellers, which should maybe make it a difficult rally moving up. Okay, let's do one more metric. Brian, if we can look at the 30-day MVRV ratio, so we can kind of take a look at what the average profit or loss of short-term Ocean holders is at the moment. That would kind of give us a better idea whether they are likely to sell or hold on to their bags for a bit more. Okay, and can you zoom out to maybe the last year so we can see historical trends? All right, yeah, okay, so also not looking great. So what you're currently seeing, guys, is the 30-day MVRV ratio for Ocean. The MVRV ratio, but basically what this metric is showing is the average profit or loss, in this case the average profit, of short-term Ocean holders or any addresses that have acquired Ocean in the past 30 days. And so you can see that it kind of tends to peak at certain levels, and those levels obviously tend to correlate with the price tops for Ocean. So the last time, when it hit all-time high, the MVRV of short-term holders was at 155. So 155 essentially means that the short-term holders of Ocean were 55% on average on their initial investment. So they basically made up another half of their initial investment. They had it in profit. So if we look at historical trends, Brian, if we go to April 1st, like mid-April 2020, what was that top in MVRV there? Yeah, so that was 47%.
Yep.
And then in February, it was a bit lower, I think.
This one was, 33.
33, and then let's look in November 19. I think it was 41, and then November was 38, 40, and then the one in August, 64. So it seems like anywhere between 40% to 60% is a danger zone for Ocean's price action. This is the price or the profit levels at which short-term holders seem to be content with no longer sitting on their bags but actually taking profit. Obviously, this MVRV kind of varies from project to project. Some holders like to or are more confident in the coin's price action, and then the MVRV rises more as they're more comfortable with sitting on their bags while the price accumulates. For some coins, this is not the case. So it seems like for Ocean, historically, anywhere between 40% and 60% in the last year at least, anywhere between 40% and 60% profit for short-term holders was a good level to start selling their bags. So what are we at right now, Brian? It seems like we've dropped quite significantly in the past couple of days after the all-time high drop. So we're now at 1.19, which is good. It's still not great. I mean, it's still relatively high. Ideally, so as a general rule of thumb, guys, when you're looking at MVRV, the lower it is, especially if it's below zero, so when holders are below break even, the better it is or the more opportune time to accumulate that coin. Why? Because there's just not a lot of interest to sell when people are below break even. And then at the other end of the spectrum, as the MVRV rises, the more it rises, the more likely it is that people are going to start taking profit. As simple as that. So currently we're at about 20% profit for short-term Ocean holders, which seems to be fine for them. It seems like it's something that they are not used to selling yet. So I would, be relatively cautious of this going forward. If we see the MVRV start to rise back up into the 40 to 60% column, it's probably going to lead to another correction. But so far, at least, it seems to have consolidated a bit or calmed down after the all-time high spike, which is good. Overall, I'm not sure, but personally, like not investment advice, but I wouldn't probably go into Ocean right now. The decline in on-chain activity in particular is worrying me quite a bit, as well as this rise in exchange bound amounts of ocean, basically this rise in sell pressure. These are all relatively negative signals for the price of it. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to go like crazy once again. I mean, it's quite a wild time for the market. But as far as fundamentals are saying, probably best to lay low for a while and see what's going to happen next. At least in the next couple of days, watch out for the daily active addresses and the exchange inflow. If those kind of go back to their positive levels, by that I mean if the daily active addresses start to increase again in order to support the price up, good. If the exchange inflow starts to decrease, meaning that the sell pressure is declining, good. In those cases, I would maybe consider going into Ocean. For now, it seems to be a bit too volatile for me, at least.
Cool stuff. Should we look at Enjin really quick as well?
Okay, let's do it for just a couple of minutes, and then we should really sign off. Okay, Enjin. Let's start with daily active addresses. I know that Enjin is quite used among its community, so I would be surprised if we see a big drop in on-chain activity, but you never know. Yeah, so it's in network activity. Yep.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, nothing too crazy, but at the same time, nothing too low. Seems like it's just the standard levels of daily active addresses. You can kind of see once again how these tend to spike around tops. Like for example, look at what is that? Is that like early June, late May of 2020?
You're talking about this one right here?
The one a bit on the left. So that top right there. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so right there, yeah, so that's May 20th, right? Sorry, May 27th.
27th, yeah.
Yeah, so you saw, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Ocean. You saw a very similar setup. The actual amount of addresses interacting with Enjin has spiked significantly as the price started to rise, meaning, probably a lot of speculators were joining the action. In general, there was a lot of value being transacted on the network, which was good. And then we saw a major decline in the next couple of days and weeks in the amount of addresses and general address and on-chain activity for Enjin. The price actually tried to push another path upward. It actually broke another high, a higher high, a few days later, but it did so at a on-chain deficit and the daily active address deficit, which kind of proved detrimental for its price action. And since then, it's kind of been in a decline. At the moment, though, we're in relatively calm waters. I would say, this seems to be a relatively normal level for the Enjin's on-chain activity. Wouldn't necessarily consider it either undervalued or overvalued. Looks good enough as far as being able to support another leg up. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, we can see a bunch of different metrics, but let's go with the same three. So exchange inflow once again. Not a lot of sell pressure, which is good. You can see it right there. Yeah, there was a spike in exchange inflow right at the top before we started consolidating and eventually correcting. Similar happened in February of 2020. There as well as the one on the left as well. Yeah, so very often you see this, guys. You see these spikes in exchange inflow, especially if they happen during a pump. It's a pretty telltale sign that people are looking to exit the market, and you should be careful. At the moment, I'm not seeing anything on the chart, which is good. I'm not seeing a whole lot of sell pressure. Let's look at actually the supply of Enjin on exchanges, Brian, if it's declining or growing. It's just below exchange inflow. Yeah, it's kind of meandering. So we saw it grow during the last top. It grew from like, what was it, 36% to about 40% in June. Yeah, there we go. So it grew by about maybe 3% or so, the total supply of Enjin on located on centralized exchanges. But since then, it started dropping, which is good. It's something that it should be doing. You know, in general, if you see a diminishing available supply of coins on exchanges, all other factors being equal, demand being unchanged, this could be a relatively good sign for its price because there's less coins to trade for. There's the same demand. You know, it could lead to the inflation of the price of the coins that are actually available to trade. So Enjin looking okay from a fundamental perspective as so far. Let's look at the 30-day MVRV ratio real quick as well to make sure that we're not in like a danger zone.
So it looks like we peaked at about 48%.
Yeah. Yeah, seems
And
like
we had
anything
another
between
one.
25 and 40% seems to be pretty dangerous. We have been rising, that's for sure. But at the moment, where are we at, Brian?
Looks like close to even. We're at about 6% profit.
Yeah, nothing too.
12,
Yeah,
12.
12 actually. Okay, that's a bit dangerous, but still nothing too extreme. I think we can go higher before short-term holders start selling. So, I mean, in general, I would say Enjin looks better than Ocean. You know, I would have to do more analysis to really figure out how promising it can look short-term wise. But at least as far as fundamentals are concerned, at least the few ones that we actually covered today, looks okay. Do more analysis. Obviously, this isn't financial advice. We're just trying to figure out what the charts are telling us. All right, I think that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for everyone watching this live or watching after the fact. Once again, if you liked what you saw today and heard from us, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, just so we can kind of make sure to tell the YouTube algorithm, hey, this is good stuff. You should promote us more on your platform. Other than that, thank you, Maxim, Kelvin, and Brian for sharing your insights with us today. You guys, if you don't want to wait until next week to talk to us and ask us your opinions about the market, our opinions about the market, check out our Discord. The link is going to be in the description of this video, and we talk about this stuff pretty much every day. One final word, check out santiment.net for everything that we've covered today in this video. All of the metrics, templates, strategies, everything that we discussed is available on santiment.net. There's a 14-day trial for pretty much everything on the platform that you definitely want to take advantage of. And until next week, thank you all, and I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Tino. And thanks for the great
Thank you.
questions, guys.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.